Welcome to MBSc Concept Chemistry. Dear students, today we will discuss degree of carbon and degree of hydrogen present in the given organic compound. Students, if you take in one organic molecule, suppose if it is there like this, in this given compound, how many primary carbons, how many secondary carbons, and how many tertiary carbons, how many quaternary carbons are there, we can identify. Students, here primary carbon, primary carbon, primary carbon, carbon directly attached with one carbon is called primary carbon. Carbon attached with one carbon is primary carbon. Secondary carbon, carbon directly attached with two carbons tertiary carbon, carbon directly attached with three carbons, quaternary carbon, quaternary carbon, carbon directly attached with four carbons. So now identify, students, here how many primary, secondary and tertiary carbons are there. Indicate primary, secondary and tertiary carbons. Here carbon further connected with one carbon, carbon further connected with one carbon, carbon further connected with one carbon, carbon further connected with one carbon. Here also carbon further connected with one carbon. These all are the primary carbon, students. Here carbon further connected with two carbons is secondary carbon. Here carbon further connected with three carbons is tertiary carbon. Here carbon further connected with four carbons is quaternary carbon or 4-degree carbon. Now primary hydrogens means primary carbon attached hydrogens, primary hydrogens, secondary carbon attached hydrogens, secondary hydrogens, tertiary carbon attached hydrogens, tertiary hydrogens. Quaternary carbon doesn't have any hydrogen, students, so though no quaternary hydrogens. Primary hydrogens, primary hydrogens are primary carbon attached hydrogens, secondary hydrogens are secondary carbon attached hydrogens, tertiary hydrogens are tertiary carbon attached hydrogens. Like this, we can identify the primary, secondary and tertiary carbon, students. Please note down, I will explain more examples. Students, now we will discuss more examples on degree of carbon and hydrogens. Identify number of primary, secondary, tertiary and quaternary carbons and primary, secondary and tertiary hydrogens present in the given organic molecules. Now students, I am giving examples. CH3, CH2, CH3 is there. Find how many primary carbons and secondary carbons are there in this compound. Carbon further attached with one carbon is primary carbon. Carbon further attached with two carbons is secondary carbon. Carbon further attached with one carbon is the primary carbon, students. So now here primary carbons 2 are there, secondary carbon 1 is there. So tertiary carbons 0, quaternary carbons 0. Next, hydrogens. Primary carbon attached hydrogens are primary hydrogens. So here two primary carbons are there. So two primary carbons attached with 6 hydrogens, that are the primary hydrogens. Secondary carbon attached with 2 hydrogens, that are the secondary hydrogens. No tertiary carbon, no tertiary hydrogens. Same like this, suppose if I given molecule like this, CH3, 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 CH2, CH, CH3, CH3. Yes, sir. Now students, identify primary, secondary and tertiary quaternary carbons. Carbon further attached with 1 degree, 1 degree, 3 degree, 2 degree, 1 degree, 1 degree, 1 degree, 4 degree. Now, primary carbons 5 are there. Secondary carbon 1 is there. Tertiary carbon 1 is there. Quaternary carbon 1 is there. Next, hydrogens. Primary carbon attached hydrogens are the primary hydrogens. So find how many hydrogens are there. So now here students, 15 primary hydrogens are there. Tertiary hydrogens 1 is there. Secondary hydrogens 2 are there. Tertiary hydrogen 1 is there. So like this students. Next, suppose if they given molecule like cyclic molecules, they given. In cyclic molecule, all 4 carbons connected with 2 carbon students, all are the secondary carbons. Secondary carbon attached hydrogens are secondary hydrogens. So now all are secondary carbons. Primary carbons 0, secondary carbons 4 are there, tertiary carbons 0, quaternary carbons 0, primary hydrogens 0, secondary hydrogens 8 are there, tertiary hydrogens 0. Now done students. Next, bond line structural representation I am giving students. You know how to identify primary, secondary, tertiary carbon atoms in bond line structural representation. Carbon further connected with 1 carbon is the primary, primary. Carbon further connected with 3 carbons is tertiary, here tertiary carbons. Now primary carbons how many are there? 4 are there students. Secondary carbons 0, tertiary carbons 2, quaternary carbons 0. Primary carbon attached hydrogens 3 will be there students. Previous complete structure I written. Now here 4 into 3, 12 hydrogens, primary hydrogens are there. Secondary carbons not there, secondary hydrogens 0. Tertiary carbons 2 are there, tertiary hydrogen, each tertiary carbon attached with 1 hydrogens. So here 2. Next, suppose students, if they given molecule like this, they given like this. Now here students, is the primary carbon, is the tertiary carbon. See, carbon further connected with the 2 carbons, no, secondary. Here carbon further connected with the 2 carbons, no, secondary. Like all remaining are secondary carbons. Now primary carbons 1, secondary carbons 5, tertiary carbon 1, quaternary carbon 0. Primary hydrogens 3, secondary hydrogens 5 into 2, 10, tertiary hydrogen 1. Note down students. Next, if they given like this students, solve these 2 compound students. Now here carbon further connected with the 2 carbons, So this is a secondary carbon. All are secondary carbons only. We know carbon valency 4, fourth bond with the hydrogen. Means here secondary carbon having only one hydrogen because the secondary carbon bonded with double bond. Now find students how many primary carbons? 0. Secondary carbons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tertiary carbons are there? 0. Quaternary carbons 0. Primary hydrogens not there. Secondary hydrogens, 6 carbons are having 6 hydrogens. So secondary hydrogen 6. Tertiary carbon not there. Tertiary hydrogens 0. Next here. Students, these two are primary carbons. This is the tertiary carbon because carbon further attached with 3 carbons. The remaining all are the secondary carbons. Now secondary carbon is the remaining are secondary carbons. Now primary carbons 2 are there. Secondary carbons 4 are there. Tertiary carbons 2 are there. Now quaternary carbons 0. Primary hydrogens 6. Secondary hydrogens, here double bond is there students. Secondary hydrogens 4. Tertiary hydrogens 0 because here double bond is there students. Carbon valency we should check students. Carbon valency already it is there. Carbon valency already 4 is there with double bonds or single bonds in the Brennan ring. Fourth one hydrogen will not be there students. Please identify that. Carbon valency. Next. Right, one more molecule I am giving here only students. Find how many primary, secondary, tertiary carbons. Students, here it is a secondary, 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 tertiary, secondary, 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 tertiary. Now secondary carbons how many are there students? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So secondary carbons 8 are there. Primary carbons 0. Tertiary carbons 2 are there. Next quaternary carbons 0. Next secondary carbon attached hydrogens. So now double bond is there students. 8 secondary carbons will be with 8 secondary hydrogens. Primary carbons not there. Primary hydrogens 0. Tertiary carbons are there but is there with a double bond. This way tertiary hydrogens 0 in the given molecule. Please note down students. Now find how many secondary and tertiary carbons are there in this given molecule. Students, alternative single bond double bonds are there. Observe here. Now students, how many primary carbons are there? 0. How many secondary carbons are there? Find students. Secondary, 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 secondary. Here it is the secondary, 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 secondary. This is carbon further connected with the 3 carbon means tertiary, here tertiary, here tertiary, here tertiary. Now secondary carbons, find students. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 secondary carbons are there students. Tertiary carbons 4 are there students. Quaternary carbons 0. Primary hydrogens 0. Secondary hydrogens, here double bond is there students. In benzene type of structures, how many secondary carbons are there? That much secondary hydrogens will be there. So now here secondary carbons 10 are there. So 10 secondary hydrogens will be there. Tertiary carbons already bonded with double bond students. tertiary hydrogens 0 here. Like this, students, any large molecules identify carbon further connected with one carbon means primary carbon. Carbon further connected with two carbons means secondary carbon. Carbon further connected with three carbons means tertiary carbon. Carbon further connected with four carbon means quaternary carbon. Students, quaternary hydrogens not there because all four bonds with carbons is there. That's why hydrogens 0. Now, primary carbons always CH3 will be there, students. 3 primary hydrogens will be there. Each primary carbon with 3 primary hydrogens. Secondary carbon, observe students, is there with the double bond means one secondary hydrogen will be there. Is a double bond is not there, secondary carbon will be with 2 hydrogens. Tertiary carbon, students, if double bond is there, 0. Double bond is not there, one tertiary hydrogen will be there. Quaternary hydrogens always 0. Like this, students, we can solve more examples. Now, how they are asking in exams? Based on this concept, how they are asking questions in exams? We will discuss one example I will give you, students. Students, solve this question. In this question, they asked how many compounds among the following contain tertiary carbons. Fine, students. How many tertiary carbons are there in these compounds? We know what is the tertiary carbon, students. Carbon further attached with 3 carbon means tertiary carbon. So now here, students, carbon further connected with 1 carbon. E carbon further connected with 2 carbons. It is the primary, secondary. Here secondary. Here, students, E carbon further connected with 4 carbons is quaternary. So no tertiary carbons in this compound. Now here, students, carbon further connected with the 3 carbons is the tertiary carbon. The remaining, it is the primary, the remaining all are secondary. So here 1 is there. Next here, students, I told carbon further connected with the carbon means tertiary carbon. If carbon connected with other functional groups, halogens, like it is not a OH group or like that, that is not a tertiary carbon, students. So now it is a secondary carbon only. Here this one also secondary, remaining all secondary carbons. Now come here, students. This is a primary carbon. This is a carbon further connected with 1, 2, 3 tertiary carbon is the secondary. Next here it is the carbon 1, 2, 3 tertiary carbon is the secondary carbon. Now come here, students, carbon further connected with carbon only I told, it is OH. So now is the secondary only, is the primary. Here carbon connected with 3 carbons is the tertiary carbon. So now here 1 is there, here 2 are there. Now here, students, carbon further connected with 3 carbons, you find, students, here 1, 2, 3. So here 1 tertiary is there. Now here also 1 tertiary is there, students. So total here 2 tertiary carbons are there. So total tertiary carbons. Total tertiary carbons. How many are there, students? 1. Here 5. Total 6 are there, students. Answer 6.